In our previous tutorial where we were looking at continuous movement and teleportation, we got everything working on a basic level enough to understand conceptually the differences between the two locomotion systems. But what you will have noticed is that when we use the teleportation system, there's just a couple of things with that interaction by default that just don't work long term. In particular, the fact that we have to use the inside grip button to activate the teleportation. So what we're going to do in this tutorial is refine our teleportation interaction a bit, and we will go back and sort of rebuild the teleportation capability so that we are able to more easily control the experience, and so that the teleportation doesn't interfere with our interaction ability to grip objects, right? So we're going to be doing that in a follow-on tutorial, and we just don't want the teleportation system sort of interfering. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to come into the left controller, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the current ray interactor and other components because we just don't need the teleportation on the left side. So let's go ahead and right click and remove the sorting group, remove the interactor visual, remove the line render, and remove the ray interactor. Be sure to leave the XR controller because that's what controls our forward, side to side, and backward movement. Let's also come over to our right controller and do the same thing. All right. And now what we want to do is we want to come over to our XR interaction toolkit because inside of that there are already some pre-made interactables. So let's see here. I think we're going to go into, here we go, interactors. And so when you come into interactors, you'll see that there is a direct interactor, a gaze interactor, a poke interactor, a ray interactor, and a teleport interactor. And you can see when you click on the teleport interactor that it has that same setup that we saw on the right and left controllers previously. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this pre-made teleport interactor and we're going to drag it over onto our right controller. Now, the first thing that I'll say is this just gets us back to where we just were. So it doesn't solve our interaction problems, and it certainly doesn't make the teleportation easy from the get-go. There's still a few things that we're going to need to do to make sure that the teleportation works the way that we would like it to. So the first thing that we need to do is try to set it up so that the grip button no longer is our main way of activating the teleportation. So on our teleport interactor, we're going to add an XR controller, action-based. And what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to do something called overriding. So basically it's like right now on my right controller, I have an XR controller that tells the right joystick how to behave, right, in terms of rotating us or moving us left and right, things like that. We want to override this behavior. We want to substitute this behavior with a different behavior that we're going to set up for the teleportation system. So when you go to activate the teleportation system, it's going to tell the XR controller, hey, don't rotate or don't do this other thing. Don't use the grip button. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and set this up just like the default right controller. But then what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the position, the rotation, and the tracking, because all of that information is already being handled by the right controller by default, and we don't want the position of the character to change. We don't want our rotation of the character. We don't want the character to be tracked at the moment. All we care about is that is that the teleportation activates as we would expect it to. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to change the select action and the select action value. Those are what are currently using the grip button. And so what we want to do is we want to come and click on this circle and type in teleportation. Oops, teleport. And what we want to do is we want to pick the right hand locomotion teleport select. There's already something defined for us. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's repeat the process again, this time for the other select action. And you're going to select the teleport select again. So now that those two things are set up correctly, then we can move on to the next step. And what we'll do is we'll click on the right controller parent. And we're going to collapse this down because we don't need to see that right now. And we're going to add what's called a XR interaction group. And this is going to be an important element to our controller later when we go to add in additional capabilities. So right now all we have is the teleport interactor, but in follow-on tutorials we're going to want the ray interactor, which is sort of like the laser pointer that can reach out and grab things, or we may want the direct interactor or some other interaction that's kind of similar to the teleport, and so we need a way of managing that. So first of all, here are the starting group members, and those are going to be the actual different interactions we're going to manage. So right now all we have is teleport, but in the future we may have any of these, the direct, the gaze, the poke, the ray, that we might add to this group on the right controller. So let's grab our teleport interactor, and we're going to, oops, we're gonna first we got to add an empty spot. And you can add a couple of them in here. Just in anticipation of future elements. But go ahead and drag the teleport interaction into that. All right, and from there we can just kind of leave it as is. That's all we need to do. We just are telling it, hey, we're going to manage this interaction group. And now we also need to add a action-based control manager. So now we're going to type action-based control manager. And then we're going to take our interaction group and we're going to drag this down to our manipulation interaction group. And what you can see here is the three distinct sort of interactors that overlap. So direct, ray, and teleport basically use a similar mechanic, right? And so what we're going to do now is we're going to take our teleport interactor and we're going to drag that in here. And then what you can see here is we have some different control actions. So we need to tell the system, like, hey, what behaviors do we need for each of these different things, right? So we're going to come in, we're going to hit the little circular button. And again, this is teleport mode activate. And so we're going to type teleport. And you can see there's already a teleport mode activate. So let's select that. Then we're going to select teleport mode cancel. There's already a teleport mode cancel. And now what we need to do is pick turn. So that was on our right controller, right? So remember right hand locomotion turn, select that. Then we want to also do it for the snap turn. And again, we want to set this up so that, you know, if you decide to switch locomotion, right, from say continuous turn to snap turn for some reason in your game, we want this thing to still behave properly. So we need to kind of set it up with anticipation that you may change other settings. So let's go ahead and pick the right hand locomotion snap turn. And then on move, right hand, locomotion move. And then on the UI scroll, there should be a right hand interaction UI scroll. All right, and now we got that set up. And then the last thing we want to do is take a look at our locomotion settings. So you can see there's one here called Smooth Turn Enable. This will smooth out any of the motion associated with kind of the different interactions on the right hand. We want to go ahead and enable that. So go ahead and turn that on. And if we've done this correctly, then when we go into the system, rather than that sort of teleportation line automatically being visible and just being red when it's not, on something that we can teleport to, it's only going to activate when we use the right thumbstick and push forward on the thumbstick. And then this will like kind of help make sure that the interaction isn't sort of activating when we, reach out and use the grip button to try and grab something, or we use the trigger to try and shoot or do some other action, right? So the right stick will be for just continuous turn, and then when you push forward on the thumbstick, it'll activate the teleportation. So let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick and make sure that it's working properly. Okay, so we can see now that my controllers are being tracked. I can continuously turn to my right and left. I can move forward, backward. I can strafe left. I can strafe right. But now when I push forward on the thumbstick, you can see that the teleportation ray appears, right? And if I move my thumbstick over, I can still teleport to my different zones, right? So I've got my little snap region here. It's behaving a little funky for some reason, but I can snap to that. And then same thing, I can snap to the box. And then you can also see that when I push forward on the thumbstick, if I hold it and I click down on the thumbstick, hold on a second. Now, when I click down on the thumbstick, it should allow me to rotate. Now, the reason I think it's not doing that is because we need to go back in and make some adjustments to our teleportation area. So normally when you use the teleport, the right thumbstick, like once you activate it by pushing forward, you can kind of wind it clockwise or counterclockwise to rotate that orientation so that the user has control over where they are facing when they land. So let's go back in and we'll make some refinements to our teleportation anchors and area that'll let us make that happen. Okay, so coming back in here, the first thing that we're going to want to do is we want to clean up our teleportation area. So if you recall, when I built the teleportation area in the previous tutorial, I actually built it onto the existing floor structure here. So you can see that there's a teleportation area currently mapped to my factory floor. What I want to go ahead and do is I actually want to remove that. And then I want to make sure that I've got the outside ground area. I want to remove that teleportation area as well. So let's go ahead and remove that. I'll rename this just so I remember that I took that off. And I'm going to actually move this plane up to the top just so it's easier to kind of find. And now I'm going to collapse the environment and I'm going to collapse the factory for right now, my XR origin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an empty game object and I'm going to call it teleportation area. Now, one reason you might want to do this, and there's actually a couple of good reasons to do this, is that by creating this empty game object and putting the teleportation area as its own separate thing rather than attaching it to each individual element, is then when you find that you want to adjust a setting or manipulate the way the teleportation area behaves, rather than having to remember every single one of the different objects maybe that you apply the teleportation area to, you can come back to this teleportation area and look for and manage the specific thing that you want there. So let's go ahead and add a component, teleportation area. And then the first thing we want to do is make sure the interaction layer mask is set up correctly. So let's check that and set it to teleport. And then now what we want to do is we want to add a collider. So let's come back into our environment here. What we're going to do is we're going to grab this plane, or in your case, any plane in your game, and we're going to drag that in. And so now our plane, this plane right here, is associated with our teleportation area. So I should now be able to teleport here. The other thing I want to be able to do, move this other ground element, is I want to take these ground elements here, and I want to do the same thing. So I'm going to come back over to my teleportation area. I'm going to lock that right now so that I can easily drag things in here without it changing on me. And I'm going to grab the ground for my outside environment, and I'm going to drag those onto my colliders. So now I have this, all of my outside ground selected. And now I'm going to come back into my factory, and I'm going to grab my floor. I'm going to drag that into my colliders. And so now all of my ground level elements are going to have a teleportation capability. Now the next thing that I need to be able to do to make the reticle spin and change its orientation is to turn on this match directional input. And this is going to be the same setting that we use on the teleportation anchors as well. So we're going to go back and double check that. But we want this to say match directional input because then that means it tells the system, hey, use the thumbstick to tell me what direction I should be facing upon teleport. So let's go ahead and give that a try on our factory floor and on the outside world, make sure that's working properly. All right, so now I'm going to press forward on the thumbstick, and you can see as I rotate my thumbstick around, I get a slightly different behavior. You can see now that the orientation rotates. Now, one thing to be mindful of that's a little tricky about this is that when you go to do this rotation, a lot of times what happens is the right thumbstick gets clicked because the thumbstick itself can be clicked like a button. And if you do that, it actually disables the rotation. So for some reason your thing isn't rotating, what you want to do is push forward on the thumbstick and then push down on the thumbstick. And when you do that, it should sort of unlock the rotation capability. So now I can come outside here, and you can see that I can warp to different places on the map, and I can kind of control my orientation. So maybe I want to rotate and face this tree. I'm going to face this boulder. And you can see that I can control not only my teleportation, but the orientation that I'm going in. So that fixes the teleportation area, but now we still need to go in and make some quick adjustments to the teleportation anchors that we did, just to make sure those are working properly. Okay, so let's start with our box over here. So if you recall, I used this as an example of how you can use the anchor to offset the teleportation location. So rather than teleporting into or on top of the box, I want to teleport next to it. And you can see that the anchor currently is set up to where it is 90 degrees offset. I actually want to turn that back to 0. And the reason I want to do that is because it turns out that the orientation icon, the little reticle at the end of the teleportation ray, is actually fixed to the object that's causing the interaction. So in the case of this box, a small trade-off. I've got to decide to, I'm going to decide to rotate it. So, okay, so the tape on the box is facing a slightly different direction, not the end of the world. But I still want that offset, right? I want that offset to be more in front of the box and in front of the conveyor belt over there. So we're going to make that adjustment. And then let's kind of check on the height here. So now when I go to click on the box with my teleport, what I should see is that reticle pointing in the same direction as this red arrow. And that's a much clearer feedback to the user about what's going to happen following the teleportation. So when I teleport toward the box, it's going to show me, hey, you're going to be facing the box. Now, there's some other things that we can do programmatically to improve that. So one thing that we could do differently is to, rather than use the box specifically as the thing, we could put another one of these anchors out onto the floor and, visualize it. Maybe that's a better option than making the box itself. The other thing we could do is we could have another game object, right? And that game object could be something like a simple UI component or another object, like in the shape of an arrow or something that appears, on the activation of the teleport. So there's a lot of different ways we could go about doing that. So we won't mess with that right at the moment. This one's already set up correctly, and I believe that on this particular object, we need to make a quick correction. So somehow I think I forgot to set this to teleport. So let's go ahead and fix that so this one works correctly. And I'm actually going to move, I want to move this, this regular teleport around. I kind of want to move it to like where my pallets are. So again, on the anchor, I had it set to 90 degrees, so it's technically I'm gonna be appearing and facing this wall. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm gonna set that to 0. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my regular teleport here, and I'm gonna drag it over here. And I kind of want to put it so that I'm like facing this set of pallets, and I want to be facing again toward the direction of this red arrow. So now we're going to rotate the whole thing. When we rotate that whole thing, now we should be facing the pallets in this direction. So assuming all those changes that we just made worked, my scene should be correctly set up now the way I want in terms of the interaction, and our teleportation should be behaving in a way that's not going to interfere with any of our other interactions that come down the line. So let's go ahead and give this a quick test. All right, so let me go ahead and click on the box, and as you can see, because of the change I made, now the reticle is pointing, kind of in the direction of the conveyor belt. And you can see when I jump there, I'm now facing the box. Let's go back over to our snap version of the teleportation anchor. It's still facing the conveyor belts, and that's good. That's what I wanted. And now you can see I've got the regular teleportation. Again, you can see that it's pointing toward the stack of pallets. And when I click there we go. Now I'm facing the stack of pallets. So again, you can see I can teleport anywhere in the room. I can change the orientation. Again, just rotating the thumbstick around after I activate the teleport. And now my teleportation is working exactly the way I need it to. All right, well, thank you guys for following along in the tutorial. If you have any questions, definitely give me a shout, and I'm happy to help you. So hopefully this works for y'all, and you find this a useful upgrade to the existing teleportation that we already worked on.